What's up, explorers? Welcome back to our channel. We're the Choose here from Choose to Explore, where we teach you guys how to see the world
and save $1.
So we just came back from another amazing trip to the beautiful island of Dominican Republic. And the Dominican Republic is a special place in our heart because it's actually the first place that we traveled internationally ever.
Together.
So that trip is what really started Choose to Explore. But today we're going to give you guys the top 20 things to know before you go to Dominican Republic. So stay tuned, you don't want to miss this one.
So the first thing you need to know is, where is the Dominican Republic?
The Dominican Republic is a Caribbean island that was colonized by the Spanish, shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti. And one of the main reasons why I love this island is the diversity of the country. Especially as black travelers, the majority of the places we go, we are in the minority. This is not the case in the Dominican Republic. There's a lot of people of different shades and colors here, and we blended right in.
Alright, so now why do people even visit the DR?
So this may seem like a no-brainer, but I'll break it down to you. Number one, the warm tropical weather here. Number two, the beautiful white sand Caribbean beaches. Number three, the beautiful landscapes and mountains. Number four, the rich history. Number five, the amazing cuisine. And one main reason why a lot of tourists come here is for the all-inclusive resorts. But trust me, there's a lot more to this island than all-inclusives, and we're going to talk about that later on in this video, so stay tuned. Next point, we're going to talk about our entry requirements as US citizens.
Yes, so if you're a US citizen, you actually do not need a visa to enter the Dominican Republic if you're going to be staying for less than 30 days. However, you do need to fill out a migration form, which we have linked in the description below, and that's to be completed before you enter the country of the Dominican Republic. Also, you're going to need your passport, a valid passport that has at least one page left for a stamp. So now let's get into, when are you going to go? What's the best time to visit?
So one of the best things about the Dominican Republic is the weather year-round is amazing. Typically it varies between the 70s, 85s, 90s.
It's going to be warm year-round.
So great time for a vacation almost any time of the year. But one thing to know, based on the geography of it being kind of mountainous, you could be a little bit cooler in those areas. So just be cognizant of where you'll be staying.
Also, it's important to note that hurricane season is between July to October, so the best time to visit would probably be outside of the hurricane season.
Although you may get a super cheap flight during this time, you gotta weigh it. Is it worth going and potentially being caught in a tropical storm? I'll leave that up to you.
So now let's get into some of the wildlife here in the DR.
Specifically, we're gonna talk about humpback whales. Yeah, I said it. Humpback whales in the Dominican Republic.
So during our last visit to Samaná, we actually spoke with some of the locals, and we found out that the humpback whales come and nest in the Dominican Republic in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean from the months of December to March.
So this is a super cool and unique experience because where else in the world can you go and see humpback whales and their babies just playing around in the Atlantic Ocean?
So we booked this tour with our resort to go to Los Haitises, and we actually rode through the Samaná Bay. So next time we come, we're gonna have to come during humpback whale season, so we'll be able to see those amazing creatures.
Third time is the charm.
So now let's talk about the different airport options.
So the main international airport is going to be in the capital, which is Santo Domingo. From my experience from booking and looking at flights, it typically is a lot cheaper to fly into Santo Domingo than any other airport on the island. However, if you are staying at some of the resorts, typically they're not going to be in Santo Domingo. They may be in other areas such as Puerto Plata or Punta Cana or Samaná. So if you want the more convenient options, you actually can fly directly into Punta Cana, you can fly into Santiago, you can fly into Puerto Plata, and there is a small airport right next to Samaná as well. It will be a little bit more expensive, but you can fly into those airports. So I'll tell you guys what we did our first time in Dominican Republic in order to save money. So we flew into Santo Domingo and we took a bus from Santo Domingo all the way to Samaná, and it was less than $6 per person one way. If you looked at what the airfare was to fly into Samaná, it was almost $300 to $400 more expensive. So we definitely saved a lot of money by taking the bus versus flying directly into Samaná. But we'll actually touch on transportation a little bit later on in this video.
So let's get into how to find affordable flights. So pretty much if you're going to be staying in a resort, there's a lot of times that they offer packages that will bundle the resort stay, the flights, and transportation. So look out for those for a more convenient option.
However, we typically don't do that. Being based in New York, a lot of times we fly with JetBlue because they have direct flights and they're a lot more affordable than a lot of the other airlines in the area.
But even if you're not based in New York, that's okay. We have a resource that shows you the top 9 ways to find cheap flights, and we have that linked in the description below. Alright, so next up we're going to get into affordable accommodations. So like we said, the Dominican Republic is well known for their all-inclusives. And not just any all-inclusives, they are affordable all-inclusives. So for instance, we stayed at Viva V Samaná by Wyndham in October, and the price was $130 a day, and that was for the both of us. So that included our stay, food, and drinks, all inclusive.
But if you're not a resort person and you'd like to find local accommodations, there's a plethora of amazing stays in Booking.com and Airbnb, and my wife actually has a whole article on how to get cheaper stays with Airbnb. So be sure to check that one out as well.
Yes, on ChooseToExplore.com.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is transportation. So in the main cities of Santo Domingo, Santiago, and Punta Cana, Uber works. And generally speaking, it's really affordable. When we went to Santo Domingo, we got like 15-minute, 20-minute rides for like $3, $5. Like, we were riding around and didn't have an issue with the prices in Santo Domingo. And in many places around the world, I typically tend to drive in order to save money and have that freedom and flexibility. But in the Dominican Republic, I don't do that. This is mainly because public transportation is really affordable and easily accessible. So I'll give you guys an example. It's about a 2.5-hour drive from Santo Domingo to Samaná. But the bus fare there is like $6.50. To me personally, it doesn't even make sense to drive there when the bus fare is $6.50. But to each their own.
So it's less expensive to take the bus than to rent a car.
There also are some other bus companies that connect the country together. So if you do fly into Santo Domingo, you can easily navigate the country through these buses at an affordable rate.
But there's also another local way to get around the country.
And these are the guaguas. But it's not like an official company, it's more like a network of drivers that come and pick you up at certain stops. So in our first time in Samaná, we actually took the guagua to get to the waterfall, which the ride cost us less than $1 to get there, and it was a cool local way in order to get around.
So now that you know the different ways to get around, we recommend that you do just that. So even though there's amazing, incredible, all-inclusive resorts, there's so much more to see and do in the DR.
If you love history, Santo Domingo is the capital of the Dominican Republic and a gateway to so much history in the Americas. When we first visited the Dominican Republic, we walked around the capital. This island was one of the first places that Christopher Columbus found on his trip to the Americas. But also in the capital, we saw the first hospital in the Americas, the first church in the Americas, and we also learned about how the Dominican people got their independence from the Spanish. But also, the Dominican Republic has some of the most beautiful landscapes in the world. We already talked about the beautiful waters and beaches that are here, and one of my favorite experiences that I didn't even know was here in the Dominican Republic was that boat ride in Los Haitises. Honestly, it felt like I was in Thailand or Southeast Asia. The beautiful turquoise waters, the large rocks that just come out of the ocean, the beautiful scenes. I couldn't get over this view. And it's not just the things to do. There are so many amazing people that are here as well.
And actually in Samaná, my favorite activity was visiting El Limón waterfall. We actually did this both times that we went to the Dominican Republic, and it's my favorite thing. I'll probably go back again. I actually have an entire article on exactly how to get to El Limón, whether you want to do it yourself or if you want to go with a guide. I have all the steps laid out for you on ChooseToExplore.com. So our next point is going to be about safety.
During our first time in the Dominican Republic, we stayed in local accommodation, and we were in the city with locals. We did not feel unsafe throughout our entire time. We took local transportation, we ate at local restaurants, and we walked the local streets. And at no time did we feel unsafe. Now, this is just our experience, and that's all I can base this off of. As I said, in the Dominican Republic, my wife and I blended in a lot better than we typically do.
So we didn't necessarily stand out as tourists.
But with that being said, you should always be mindful of your things and your surroundings. Use your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. And our next point is dancing and nightlife in the Dominican Republic. Now, if you know anything about Dominicans, you know they love to dance, they love their music, and they love to party. The parties are non-stop and they seem like they're never gonna end. And boy, can Dominicans move. Merengue, bachata, salsa, you name it, they do it all. Every time that I've been to the Dominican Republic, I sign up for a dance class, and I think my hips are still sore to this day.
Our next point is getting into affordable meals. So if you're staying at an all-inclusive, you obviously don't really have to worry about meal options. The food is all included within your stay. But if you're staying outside of the resorts, there's a lot of incredible cheap food places that you can get amazing food at. For example, on our first trip to the DR, we actually ate at this amazing place right on the water called Adrian Trafical.
So this restaurant came highly recommended to us. It had waterfront views. We had an appetizer, 2 entrees, a drink, and in total it was less than $50, which is crazy and super affordable.
So what are the must-try foods in the DR?
So we're gonna start off with one of my favorites, and this is mofongo. So mofongo by itself is just mashed plantains. But typically when you order it, you can get meat, seafood, chicken, and sauces on it. Make sure that the mofongo is not dry. Also, I love sancocho. It's a hearty soup with a lot of different meats and items in it.
And for me, I really love the fried plantains, which are really sweet, and also the tostones, which are plantains, but they're more savory.
So the plantains are going to be the ripened maduro, which is going to be like the darker colors. And the tostones are going to be the unripened, like the green bananas. And those are going to be more like a savory, salty flavor. Also, a must try here is to get a local Presidente. Presidente is the local beer in the Dominican Republic. So support the locals and try local beer.
Drink responsibly. So now we're going to go into currency and tipping. So if you're staying in a resort, you'll be fine with just using your credit card. But once you're outside of the resort, cash is going to be king.
This is especially the case for local vendors and shops.
So just keep in mind that if you are using the US dollar, it may not be accepted, and if they do accept the US dollar, it may not be a favorable rate.
But the good thing is, if you put in Google Maps, Cambio, there's plenty of different places where you can go and exchange your currency. The next point we'll talk about is negotiating and bargaining, especially if they can identify you as a tourist. Typically, tourists are going to pay tourist prices.
The good part is, it's acceptable to bargain, and in many cases, is expected.
For instance, on our first trip to the Dominican Republic, we bought some beautiful artwork that we took back home, and we negotiated to get the price down, and we got this beautiful thing that we hang up on our wall. So I think it's definitely worth it.
So our next point is all about language. So as we mentioned, the Dominican Republic was colonized by the Spanish, so they do speak Spanish there.
Now personally, I feel like my Spanish is pretty good. I'd say I'm conversational. The only place that I've second guessed that is in the Dominican Republic. The Spanish that I've observed here is difficult to understand. And this is mainly because they speak so fast and they chop up their words here in the Dominican Republic.
So come prepared with your Google Translate ready.
And also, speaking some Spanish will definitely help you with the negotiation.
So our next point is really important. It's all about restroom expectations. So from our experience, you cannot flush tissue down any of the toilets in the Dominican Republic. Do not do it. And you may want to bring some tissue or some wipes with you just in case there isn't enough available in the restroom. And once you use it, you just throw it in the trash can that's right next to the toilet. Do not flush it.
Also with the restrooms, especially if you're coming from the US, 2 things may be a little bit different than what you're accustomed to. Number 1, some accommodations may not have hot water. And number 2, there may not be strong water pressure coming through those pipes.
So definitely be sure to read all the reviews and all the details related to the accommodation before you book it.
Now, if you are in one of the resorts, I wouldn't imagine this would be the case, but if it is, remember the shoes told you.
So last but not least, we're going to get into packing essentials. So number 1, you're definitely going to need some bug spray. There's mosquitoes everywhere in the DR and you don't want to get bit up. Number 2, you're going to need sunscreen. You definitely want to protect your skin, keep your skin glowing, not burned. Also, you should come prepared with a water bottle that has a filtered straw. We have one linked in the description below because you should not drink the tap water in the Dominican Republic. It's not safe.
Just to be safe, we actually brushed our teeth with bottled water that was provided by the resort. And there you guys have it. 20 tips to know before you go to the Dominican Republic. Thank you guys so much for staying to the end of the video. You guys could be anywhere in the world, but you're here watching with us, and we truly appreciate it. So please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.